the Maasai community, yet hakuna masomo ya kutosha. What would your government do to make sure that in marginalized communities like the Maasai, the Samburus, also get quality education and have those schools and, you know, infrastructure in place to make sure that they also get the education? Two, the issue of unemployment. There's a very, very high level of unemployment. People are educated, they have masters, they have degrees, but they're not working. Yet in government, we can look at the wage bill. Unaona pesa mingi ya serikali inaenda kwa kulipa watu mishahara because they are ghost workers or people who are not even there. Yet we have so many unemployed young people in the country.
Let me tell you, my brother. Mimi kwa maoni yangu, kwanza kuna kitu nataka kujulisha Wakenya. Labda Wakenya hawajui, na nitalizungumzia hili jambo hadharani hivi karibuni. Kabla tuondoke serikali around 2021, tulianza mradi wa serikali. Tulikuwa tunasukuma sana na makampuni ya China ku survey Kenya yote, kutengeneza ripoti on Kenya's mineral resources. Mwishowe National Security Council ikakataa, tukasema hii kazi ifanye na watu wetu because tuna uzoefu wa watu wetu. You know, Directorate of National Intelligence Service, the Ministry of Mining, na Directorate of Military Intelligence, DMI. Hao watu wote wako na capability ya kutengeneza. You know, sometimes people don't know the capacity we have as a country, even in our government. E team, which was led by an incredibly brilliant officer, they compiled a report on Kenya's mineral resources. Pick them up, now I compiled a report ya Kenya's mineral resources, the whole country. The report is there. Mpango ulikuwa tukimaliza hiyo reporting, tuende sasa kwa stage ya pili. Stage ya pili ni kufanya kazi na bunge to publish the report, then we begin the process that is called commoditization. Tunaanza kwa stock exchange like Europe or what have you, we begin selling shares because of the future prospects that we have.
Yes.
Like the resources we have in Kwale County, the resources we have in Narok,
Yes.
the resources we have in Homa Bay,
Yes.
for example.
Yes.
You know, the iron ore we have in Homa Bay and so on is huge.
Yes.
And some parts of Western Kenya, then the northern part of the country with incredible resources. The geothermal potential of that belt, if you started all the way from this area of Suswa, all the way until Baringo, and so on.
Yes.
We said these are the resources we have. Then if we went there and commoditized this, we would actually wipe out our debt, you know, just like that.
Yes.
Then secondly, we have a system where the extraction of these minerals and extraction of these resources has got a direct benefit to the people in the respective areas they are found. Mimi nimeona another day na nikashangaa sana, but you know, hiyo ni Kenya. Mtu mwingine hapo na ninamjua ni mtu ambaye anafanya manufacturing ya mabati and so on somewhere in East Africa. Ana confuse watu hapo Homa Bay ni kwa sababu hao watu hawajui kwamba hiyo area ambayo anawa confuse anataka kuwalipa pesa ya shamba iko na iron ore. Unajua anataka kuingia hapo to extract that. Now once that is done, then you enter into a strategic concessioning where benefits go to the local community and the investors who are involved and the national government. There's a structure of revenue sharing that comes with that. If that happened, and it happened on most of the activities that happen in a place like Narok, now you're asking me, what goes to the county government in terms of revenue, I mean, is enough to deal with all the social services that you need. Because nimekuuliza sahi, watu wa Narok, have you seen a publicly published report inasema about revenue ya Masai Mara? Umeiona wewe? Umeiona Kilima Pesa? Do you know any public information? Na tena niambie ni sheria gani Kenya ambayo inakubali government ifanye mambo yao yote kwa siri? Na unajua watu wakianza kufanya mambo ya siri namna hiyo, obviously you know what is going on is intense corruption, abuse of office, and theft. You know, people have become billionaires using resources that are coming from that place. So one way of addressing that problem you're asking me about education and the failing resources is a transparent and firm extraction of resources and making sure that those resources benefit the local people. A transparent deployment of those resources to the welfare of the people. Hawa watu ambao wanapea concessions kufanya mining ama wanafanya kazi fulani wanahitaji kuambiwa wewe hero, in addition to ile unalipa unatuonyesha hapa, utajenga hospitali hapa hii pesa, utagharamia university college hapa, and so on and so forth. Lakini sasa licenses zinapewa kwa briefcase na watu wengine usiku ambao wanazungumza. Even county assembly, mimi najiulizanga, even county assembly ya Narok ama county assembly ya Kajiado ama county assembly ya Kwale imeonyeshwa some of these agreements and discussions. And why not? Sheria gani inasema those wale watu ambao MCAs wanakaa hapo kwa county assembly si ndio wanasimamia, ndio wanawakilisha watu wa Narok, ndio wanawakilisha watu wa Kajiado ama Kwale ama Baringo? Mbona hawaonyeshwi? Hii sasa tumeanza kutoa licenses. Na hapa Taita Taveta tumetoa licenses kwa John Mary Company from Australia. Itafanya mining hapa. Ile pesa, the projections we have ni hivi, revenue itakuwa hivi. Kulipia licenses, wamelipia licenses bilioni 3. Na hii licenses wamelipia bilioni 3, bilioni 1 ni accounting. Mbili inaenda kwa wizara. You know, mambo kama hayo. So that sasa watu wa Narok wenyewe wajione, this is what we are getting from what God blessed us with. Sasa this, mimi nafikiri we will solve our problems, first of all, by being very transparent about this and involving the people. Secondly, serikali on employment, government doesn't create employment directly. Not everybody can be employed by government. Government creates employment by the ecosystem it creates. So that, you know, people invest and people engage in economic activity. That economic activity is what that will spark growth. Just before we at the end of our term, tulikuwa tumeanza kufanya feasibility study to do a PPP ya kujenga an abattoir in Narok. You know, one of the ultra modern and best abattoirs that you think about. Because if you look at that whole place, it's livestock farming, range, and so on and so forth. If you build that kind of facility there, the effect, you know, of that will be incredible. There is no point of our military buying meat from Brazil. I hope they have now stopped, because we started, you know, stopping that when we were in government. I hope now, you know, with the revival of Kenyan Meat Commission and the others, they have stopped. We have we can actually achieve self-sufficiency in this particular respect. So ni kama mimi kama ningepata nafasi, I would even think of a big landmark or signature project like an abattoir, you know, so that you spur the growth of you know, livestock farming in Narok. That is how you now start dealing with the question of unemployment. Yeah, people get the local things to do, they get involved and so on, and then start insisting on agro processing and value addition. You know, ile kazi inafanyika pale Transmara. I saw some people experimenting the last time I was there. There's even actually someone who was telling me, is an agricultural scientist friend of mine, that there's a discovery that has been made that there's some soils in the lower part of Transmara are very good for the growth of coffee. So you insist and say, if you're going to farm here, we provide support for you to do the processing here, to do the sugar cane here and so on. That's how you create employment.
Okay. Asante daktari. Okay. Umejibu swali langu ambalo nilikuwa ninataka kuuliza tena, kwa sababu unajua Narok County, Kajiado, Samburu, Laikipia hutegemea mifugo. Na wengine kama Narok ufanya ukulima, na most of the time these products get out of those counties raw without value addition. So we had that when you get presidency, you will make sure that you will put value addition so that they benefit.
You work with the county government to provide a scheme of incentives to attract big PPPs. In fact, you can target and tell yourself that you're going to do 3. For example, in the case of Narok. Unajua saa ingine hakuna haja ya kudanganya kusema mambo mingi ambayo hayana maana. Ni bure tu yani. Target 3 to start with. You do meat processing, you do an abattoir. You strengthen sugarcane farming, and you blow up that sector, you know, in terms of manufacturing and sugar processing. Then you either now they have a very radical relook at the tourism sector and how you will manage it to benefit the locals. And you will triple the revenue that comes from there and increase the employment in that place. And if you are sharing revenue effectively with the resources that you are getting as you move forward, the truth of the matter is that I agree with that researcher who was saying that in a generation, you can actually lift Narok completely out of poverty. Yeah, completely.
And maybe just swali lingine daktari ni kwamba kesho unaenda Narok. There's a Thanksgiving ceremony ya Mheshimiwa Mwitalelo Kenta. So what does this mean to your candidature or to your candidacy and also to the Jubilee Party in Narok County?
Well, first of all, I'm excited and nataka kwenda huko kesho kuenjoy. Pili, unajua Mheshimiwa Kenta ni kiongozi anaheshimiwa sana. Nimekutana na watu wengi sana ambao wengine walikuwa naye university. In fact, mwingine ananiambia the other day kwamba wakati alicontest uongozi wa the law students at the University of Nairobi, at that particular time, he stood out and a lot of people voted for him. This brilliant, nice Maasai boy who was relating very nicely with everybody. You know, people loved him across the board, and he's like that. So, you know, and he's been a source of a connection across the Ma community and Ma areas in the country. He has friends across the board from Samburu, tulikuwa naye siku nyingine Samburu, you know, all the way to Kajiado and even Tanzania. So, first of all, you know, I think this is probably one of the first times when an indigenous original Maasai leader is running a visible national party. Two, kwa maoni ya Rais mstaafu Mheshimiwa Uhuru Kenyatta ambaye ni kiongozi wetu wa chama na NEC ya chama chetu, Jubilee ni chama cha kitaifa. You know, we are the only I think we are the only party that you can say we are essentially, you can't pin us. Party inakuswa huku ama inakuswa huku and so on. Number tatu, unajua there has been so much talk you know, when you see talent, you know, and when you see Mwitalelo better that Kenta its Secretary General. I mean, of course, all former Secretary General who has now risen up the ranks in the party and become Deputy Pioni have made their fantastic contribution, and then also new assurances kwa jamii. I will live to see somebody from these communities that are seen as small ascend to the leadership of the country. You know, that is it, because you see, it's a people who are building their country sensibly. People don't care about tribes. Which numbers do you have? Which, you know, human beings are not fish in a basket. You are carrying around and saying, oh, we kabila yako iko na watu tatu na we kabila yako iko namna. You know, we go for talent and to do something. We normally say three things: character and I don't know, it's commitment or whatever. Those, if you fulfill character and capacity, if you check the 3 boxes on competence, character, and capacity, that should be fine. And then the Mujimo Lekenta checked all 3 boxes. You know, character, capacity, competence. The serious guys hanging out with him and other people tomorrow.
From that note, National Dakari, how do you appreciate representation the Maasai or indigenous people offer or from domination from the powerful groups?
You know, my brother, the reason why I fought so hard when I was Minister for Education to clean up the fairness. Hakuna vile mtoto kutoka Lolgorian anaweza kwenda Alliance alafu aenda asome medicine ama engineering ama akuje kuwa principal wa Alliance ama principal wa Mangu High School if we are not fair. Fairness, you know, because you see, and that fairness is very closely inspired by the culture of meritocracy. I have done this before. I am saying it not as hearsay. Ni kitu mimi nimefanya na nimeona. If you are fair and you are objective and you follow merit in the things you do, everybody will be at the table. I'm telling you the truth. You don't have to wear political lenses. Just be objective and fair. Meritocracy. You know, merit. People get positions because they qualify for them. People in the public service, and you are going to be very fair. Utakuwa na mapeers wale kutoka kila jamii ya Kenya. Ukichagua watu kwamba unatafuta watu wa kazi na watu kutoka jamii ya Maa, for example, ninajiuliza kila wakati, ni seme hii hadharani. If there is anything about my presidential candidature, it is about the question from being a game of ethnic balkanization and ethnic bulking to an environment where merit, and as I said, the 3 C's matter: competence, character, and capacity. So that you know, because there's a guy, niwaambie ukweli, kuna kiongozi ambaye bahati mbaya alikufa kwa ajali ya ndege. Huku zamani nilikuwa nimemjua, kwa anaitwa Bonaya Athikodana. Alikuwa waziri wa mashauri ya nchi za kigeni wakati mmoja, alafu akawa waziri wa kilimo wakati mwingine. Wakati nilimchunguza huyo muungwana na nilisoma mambo yake, wakati alikuwa kwa shule, ile PhD thesis aliandika hata wakati huu sahi, it's a big reference point for study. He was incredibly brilliant. Sasa wakati huo mimi nilikuwa nasema, naomba Mwenyezi Mungu siku moja mtu ambaye akona uwezo kama huu awe rais wa nchi na anatoka Pandiri ya Marsabit. Sasa tukisema eti hawa ni kabila ndogo, Rendile, you know, ama Borana, you know, ama tukienda namna hiyo tunajenga nchi gani? Lazima sasa tufike mahali ya uwezo wewe. The question that we should answer all the time is who can do it? Nani anaweza kuifanya vyema? Who can do what we want done? Na tukijibu swali hilo vizuri, mambo ya ukabila itapotea, mambo ya sehemu ya nchi itapotea, mambo ya umetoka familia gani itapotea, tutapata viongozi wa kuendesha nchi mbele vyema. So directly to your question, how communities that seem themselves as minority kama Wamasai ama Samburu, mimi niko tayari. In fact, I would like to manage serikali ambayo iko blind to anything else except merit and fairness. Yeah. Blind. I would like to, and I undertake this, naambia wa Kenya tu kweli, I would like to run a government that is blind to everything else except merit and fairness. Uwe mwanamke, uwe mwanaume, because tunataka kazi ifanywe. And they know, na maisha yangu mimi nimepigania hiyo nilikuwa napigana na cartels kwa sector ya education kwa sababu tunataka mtoto apate grade yake ile Mungu amempea. Si eti kwa sababu wewe ni tajiri uende kununua grade na yule maskini kutoka Lorgorian agwe namna gani?
Maybe my last question, Daktari, because of time. Swali langu la mwisho ni kwamba tumeona mambo ya corruption imekuwa mingi sana, ni scandal after scandal after scandal. So how will your presidency deal with two things? One, corruption. Two, management of public debts.
Okay, unajua those are big questions, but I can answer them in a summarized version. There is no way, when we have these public conversations, in this presidential campaign as we go forward, I intend to remain just as forthright as always. And let's have a honest conversation as citizens of this country. There is no way you will fight corruption if you are corrupt yourself. Let's begin from that point. So the first offer that I make to Kenyans is that I will lead by example. Uwezi kufanya biashara na serikali wewe mwenyewe ukiwa mkubwa wa serikali, you engage in these things. You cannot tell people to stop doing what you do every day. Wewe mwenyewe, you can't. The first thing is to lead by example. Kenya does not need new laws or new institutions. Hizo tuko nazo za kutosha. What Kenya needs now are leaders with a different mindset. Leaders who are able to be selfless and who will put country before self. Hiyo ndio shida. Hiyo ndio shida tu tuko nayo, and once we get that, we will have 50% of our problems will be solved. Because ukianza kuwa namna hiyo, wewe mwenyewe hujukui hongo. Wewe mwenyewe utaki maneno kama haya. Wale mnafanya kazi nao watakuamini. And you will have the moral authority na nguvu ya kupigana na ufisadi. The tools you need to fight corruption are all there. The laws are there, the institutions are there, the willingness of the people are there. Political will is the one that is not there, because those who are involved in it are corrupt themselves. You see, how will you run a government when you are yourself a business person, a tenderpreneur? You are fiddling with tenders and so on. So instead of supporting the private sector, working with the private sector to improve business, you are their competitor. As I was saying the other day, we have to make a decision as leaders. Are you going to do regulation, public policy development that spurs growth and helps the economy to develop, or you are going to be a business person, a competitor? When you call a meeting of the private sector people to your office at status when you are president, and you are seated there with people, they are manufacturers, you are a manufacturer yourself. You are seated with them there, they are transporters, you are a transporter yourself. And so what are you actually discussing in the process? Unaanza kuambia, let us follow these standards. You don't follow them yourself. Yes. So how will you fight corruption? You know, tuzidanganyane kwa sababu ya siasa, we are lying to each other here and saying things that are politically correct, doing public relations. If we are going to do public relations in politics in Kenya, we will continue going around in circles and we will sink. Let us just face the reality as it is. There are no holy people in this world. We are not holy. I am not holy myself. I am not coming from Mars or from heaven. But when it comes to leadership and the survival of our country, we must get to a point and say, let us draw a line in the sand. The sacrifices we have to make now is to jinyime sisi. We deny ourselves some of these things in order for the whole community to go forward. But if we don't do that, how will we succeed? The people who fought for the independence of this country denied themselves welfare and comfort. So, servant leadership, sacrificial leadership, going into that office, you're going to, and you have to do that in order for the country to develop. Lakini ukifika pale, we niambie, you are developing a public housing system. You are a cement manufacturer yourself. You are calling the private sector to discuss with them cement prices, and you are their competitor. What are you doing? You can't fight corruption in that kind of manner. So my response and my undertaking, my pledge to the people of Kenya is this. Exemplary leadership beats everything else. Leadership that can be trusted. Tufanye mambo watu wanaweza kuamini. Unaweza kukuamini. Ukisimama pale unawaambia, wanaamini, unasema ukweli. Huwezi kusema, oh, sisi tutabadilisha hii. And you have no capacity because you are compromised yourself to the bone marrow. Two, the institutions are there. The laws are there. Let us do the things that we need to do strictly according to the law. Finally, on the issue of debt. Lazima tukope kusema tu kweli ili tukuse uchumi wetu na tufanye maendeleo. Shida ni tunakopa kutoka wapi na tena tunafanyia mkopo nini? The level, and nimesema mbeleni, the level of wastage in government is shocking. I mean, it's like we borrow money to steal it, to waste it, and to do all manner of things. I was even telling people the other day, look at how mwenye angalia mradi wa nyota. Katika nchi zote za Afrika ambazo zinahusika na hii mambo ya nyota, nchi yetu tu ndio rais anahusika na hiyo maneno. Nchi zingine hata Benin, Angola, Rwanda, huku kwingine hakuna rais kukimbia around the country and so on. Sasa kujifanya hii ni mambo yangu ya serikali nimewaletea na grant ya loan, grant ya World Bank. And then the resources that are spent there are incredible. Unapeleka mandege, magari sijui ya musina ngapi, wafanyakazi wa serikali wanalipa mapadiemu huko nini for country our size. Na tumekopa. So if you deal with wastage, first of all, you borrow concessional facilities in number two. And number, it's cutting the cloth your size, turning resources to where they are supposed to be. Siku ngeni nimeuliza hapa wakubwa wa serikali wakanitusi sana wakati niliuliza, unawezaje kuhitaji pesa mingi kwa State House kuliko Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital? Hakuna maternity ward pale, hakuna operation theater huko, unafanyia nini pesa nyingi namna hiyo? Na hizo pesa zote 17 billion, mimi ukinipea State House na unipea hizo pesa, hata before we start anything, nitatoa 14 billion kwanza. Nipeleke 7 kwa education, nipeleke 7 kwa health. Na hata hiyo 3 inabaki naweza kurudisha by the end of the year. Because unafanya nini? So if we stem wastage of public resources, we manage our public affairs in a disciplined manner, we will succeed. Let me give you an example in conclusion. Niambie hivi, wewe umeajiriwa mshahara, pale Mayani wanakulipa mshahara. Tuseme mshahara wako ni shilingi 1,150. Ukienda nyumbani jioni unakaa na mama, mwisho wa mwezi unapiga budget, tuko na fees, tuko na nini ya kununua. Okay, hii tunahitaji kununua plot eka moja pale Narok, tutachukua loan kutoka kwa sako and so on. Si mnapanga vijana namna hiyo? Why can't we do that to the country? So we are disciplined. That's why I said the other day, discipline is destiny. If we are not disciplined, there is nothing we are going to achieve. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. There's this question of conservation. The Mara counties, especially Kajiado and Narok, it's a fact. They live with wild animals. So that's to say they bear the cost of conservation without adequate, without adequate and fair compensation. How will you do to make sure that there will be fair, timely compensation, a reality for the victims of human-wildlife conflict?
You know, I dealt with this issue when I was in government. The challenges are twofold. Number one, poor budget allocation for this compensation. And you know, your poor budget allocation natokana na mismanagement of the revenue accruing from these facilities. Because you see, we were preparing an amendment to the law before we left government, and I suspect that even the current administration is trying to look into that amendment, because it was being done by the Office of the Attorney General. If they're not looking at it, they don't do it, we will do it ourselves when we come to government. To look for a law where a special fund for compensation is created that is directly funded by the revenue from this environment. So that you see, of necessity, say for example from the Mara and what have you, we say with the revenue structure we create, what goes to the county, what goes to the national government, and then a special compensation fund is created where directly every month that revenue goes there. So that when there is an incident of a human-wildlife conflict, the compensation does not take even a month, because the funds are there, the structure is existing, and you do that. It's administrative efficiency, honestly speaking. Is waking up in the morning and managing things in the manner in which they're supposed to be managed without storming and so on. Secondly, also, is, as I said, is greater attention to the environment and the repercussions of that conservation and the protection of environment to the rest of economic activities, so that there are people who live there, there are people who engage in economic activities. How is it that you plan without catering or taking care of their interests and so on? So I would personally, I hope that amendment has been carried through, and I've not checked, I have to be very honest. I hope that amendment to the law has gone through Parliament. If it hasn't, I undertake to ensure it's done. So fed directly by the revenue from this conservation areas, and even part of the licensing caters for compensation, and you would even actually be sector, so that part of that revenue is paid as insurance premiums to coordinated and managed to pay specific attention to economic development and welfare of these areas, and then create a constant framework of public participation. The county assemblies in these counties, the county assembly of Kajiado, Narok, Samburu, Baringo, the county assemblies of these areas, like Laikipia, must be drawn in these activities that we are doing. The public must know, if we are doing concessioning and we are giving licenses and so on, the county government have to be involved. The revenue structure that is agreed on has got to be a public affair, and it's available. And if the government has a problem showing it to us wananchi, Parliament is the representative of the people. They should go to Parliament and declare these licenses and these concessions to Parliament. This secrecy of issuing licenses through briefcases and so on is basically theft and blunder of public resources, which we should stop.
Tukimalizia daktari, because naambiwa tumalize in the next 3 minutes. Swali langu la mwisho unapopeana ujumbe kwa Wamasai kwamba you're going to Narok tomorrow is what's your take on privatization of public enterprises?
Tuseme tu ukweli, because this is something which we have studied. I was in government before. I'm not going to pretend and lie. When we studied this, the management of our parastatals and so on, some of them are actually an unnecessary drain on the exchequer, on the resources. But the reason why we have insisted on our public participation and public involvement in this privatization is that it is done in an open and transparent manner. What is happening with this administration is actually asset stripping. In other words, unachukua mali ya umma, unajifanya you are doing privatization, watu wanaenda Turkey huko Dubai wanaregister makampuni na ni wao wenyewe wanakuja kuiba mali ya serikali hapa. The processes should be transparent, completely transparent and competitive. I've sat down with very experienced people who understand a lot of these things that we are discussing, who will tell you, for example, that some of the purported PPPs to do some work around are like 3 times the actual cost of what you need to do the work that is being done. The way the exercise is being done is riddled with unbearable corruption, violation of the law, and you can see clearly it is part of the culture of blunder and misuse of public resources. Hawa wangwana ndugu zetu ambao wako katika uongozi wakati huu ni kama hakuna kitu hawataki kuuza. Wanataka kuuza kila kitu, wanaweza hata kutuuza sisi wenyewe. You know, that is it. Na ukienda namna hiyo, mpango gani sasa huko? Ni kwenda kutafuta watu huko, wakora huko, wanapangana na wakora sijui kutoka wapi, India, Turkey, wherever, wanakuja hapa, and the country is just losing resources just like that. Alafu baadaye, the other day tukiwa na mkutano na wenzangu katika upinzani, tulisema labda hivi karibuni tunahitaji kutoa ilani kwa nchi marafiki wa Kenya na wafanyabiashara wale wa private sector, kwamba sisi kama upinzani wa Kenya wakitupatia nafasi vile nafikiri watatupatia tuunde serikali ijayo, sisi hatutaheshimu hizi contracts mnaingia nazo. Hatuwezi, kwa sababu huwezi kupora nchi namna hii alafu watu wakubali unafanya maneno kama haya, ili hizo nchi marafiki wawaeleze na wawashauri wawekezaji wao na wafanya biashara wao kwamba ukienda Kenya unaenda kununua kampuni, ukienda kufanya biashara uchipange, usiende pale kufanya ufisadi na viongozi wa serikali, kwa sababu serikali inayokuja haitaheshimu hiyo.
Daktari, asante sana. Wamasai wanauliza sana, wakati ulikuwa waziri wa usalama wa ndani, kuna ng'ombe wao wengi waliuliwa Laikipia. So wanasema kama Daktari Fred Matiang'I atakuja kuwania na apate ruhusa kuwa rais, je, atakuwa safe?
Lakini wengi wanaweza kukuambia tu kusema ukweli kwamba ile mipango tulifanya ya usalama pande ile ya Baringo, Laikipia, all the way, ilileta usalama kwa muda mrefu sana pande ile, na tulifukuza wafisadi sana na wakora wale ambao wako na bunduki na wanafanya hiyo biashara huko. Imerudi sahi kwa sababu kuua ng'ombe na kuuza ng'ombe na kuiba ng'ombe wa Masai ni biashara ya watu, kwa sababu hawezi kuendelea namna hiyo kama hakuna mtu anapata faida kutoka kwa biashara hiyo. Na tulikubaliana sisi wote tukiwa kwa serikali, it was the decision of the National Security Council. Sijacheck kama hawa wangwana wamefanya hivyo vile tulikubaliana, because ni decision tulikubaliana ya serikali kwamba tuweke kambi za kutrain wanajeshi wetu pande ile na kutrain our crack teams ya GSU na kwingine pande ile, to provide protection ya wale watu wote wako pande ya Laikipia na kule kwingine. And also ile mazungumzo tulikuwa na serikali ya Uganda kuhusu wale wa Karamoja ambao wanafuka mpaka wanakuja pande kuhangaisha watu wetu, nafikiri is still holding. Na kuna mradi ambao President Kenyatta mwenyewe alikuwa na uongoza wa kutengeneza mabawa ya maji huko na kuhakikisha kwamba grazing areas and watering areas are managed effectively so that we support the livestock farming in that area was going on. I don't know if our friends, our colleagues in government wanaendelea na hiyo maneno, lakini if it's not being done, the intention, the plan is there. As I said, you know the beauty about our country. These things have been discussed several times. Mimi, I understand them and I know them like the back of my hand. And that is why I say, ukiangalia kwa wale ambao tunatafuta kiti nao, mimi ndio tu nitaapishwa nianze kazi that afternoon na niendelee na kazi, sababu ninaelewa hii mambo vile iko. I don't have to upgrade my knowledge or update anything. Ninaelewa hii na niko tayari. Mwisho, hizi vitu zinahitaji ujasiri, zinahitaji courage and focus. Sasa hiyo mnaniuliza firmness ndio tunahitaji, na mimi niko tayari kuzifanya.
Okay. Jumbo kwa mwisho kwa Masai, closing remarks.
Na weleze labda kama kuna uwezekano wa Jubilee kuungana na mirengo mingine ya siasa ku front candidate moja.
Mimi nawashukuru kwa nafasi ya kipekee kuzungumza nanyi. Na Wamasai ambao wananisikiza, kwanza nataka kuwashukuru. Mimi ni mmojawapo ya wale wa Kenya ambao wameegeza, wameishi na wamekaa na jamii ya Wamasai. Ninawaona na ninawaangazia kila wakati kama ndugu zangu, na ninawapenda sana. Nataka kufanya kazi nao. Katika nchi hii ya Kenya hakuna jamii ambayo imekaribisha kila Mkenya kwao kama Wamasai. Kiangalia Kajiado, kiangalia Narok, hiyo ndio sura kamili ya Kenya. Kila Mkenya kutoka tabaka zote ako katika Narok, ako katika Kajiado. Na mimi nawaomba tuendelee na mapenzi hayo na uhusiano huo. Nimekuja kwenu na unyenyekevu. Tumefanya kazi na nyinyi wakati mwingine wa kazi ngumu, tukiwa na kina natembea pale kupeleka watoto shule huko, nimetembea kutafuta bunduki huko, kufukuza wakora. Mnanielewa na mnajua kwamba mimi mambo yangu ni jina moja tu, kazi. Na Wamasai wanahitaji kazi ifanywe, na Wamasai ni watu ambao wanaheshimu ujasiri, courage and firmness. Across the board, I am your candidate if you are still staying with that focus and that interest. Fairness, justice, restoration will stay. And I'll work with the Ma community and all my brothers in that community to develop a modern Kenya that honors their wealth, God-given wealth, honors their talent and all their blessings, so that we can build a prosperous and beautiful Kenya. I'm ready for service.
Asante. Asante sana daktari. Ashole wale wale gresheni MINFM tenebo Paran FM ibudera dointi amasi udhirmalango na Emmanuel Ulikiseme. Tenebo Steven Adantaya. Yes, kigrasho kuna studio moja kwa moja kijiangani daktari Fred Matiang'I ule ngaraba gine Narok ngam mheshimiwa Ulikenda SG Lempati Jubilee Tolo Shule Kenya. Kijashole.